complex, make it zinplex. Dis oulik. Nou ja, die SABS hoofadministrateur, of jy sê SABS, want dit is 'n Engelse woord, nê? Hoofadministrateur Jodi Scholtz skuif nog nie by ons om ons meer te gesels oor standaarde in Suid-Afrika en hoe die SABS werk. Good morning, Jodi.
Good morning, Pierre. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
It's lovely having you. Tell us, let's start right at the bottom for the easy folk out there like me. SABS and standards. How important is it really? Let's be honest about it. I mean, I can probably make something that's not really up to standard, and I can sell it, and I'll make some money. You know, why is it important to standardize?
Sure, you can certainly make something and sell it. The whole point about standards is that it introduces a level of conformity into your product and your manufacturing process. So you would manufacture, let's say, a laptop. And you could do that very easily. The parts are very basic. But for it to be long-lasting, for it to have credibility in the market, for you to be competitive in your industry, it needs to be manufactured according to a specific standard. And so at the Bureau of Standards, that's what we do. We're the only national body that is enacted or mandated by legislation, by the Standards Act, to actually develop national standards. And we do that through a lengthy process in terms of getting experts from a range of sectors to develop a national standard.
You mentioned these national standards. Can you just explain slightly further how exactly those national standards are formulated? Is it just by getting experts in certain fields?
So let me first talk about the composition of what we call our technical committees. So these comprise of NGOs, SMMEs. The biggest portion are industry associations at about 14% representation, and then individual companies or organizations at about 60-65% representation. They do this on a voluntary basis. So we pull them into a room. SABS, the Bureau of Standards, provides the secretariat services for that. And what we then do is we go through a process. So, for instance, you would then have a request for a standard. We then assess market relevance. Once we make a call that this is something that the South African market could benefit from, we then form a technical committee. There's a formal approval process. After that, it goes into a draft is formed. That is then approved by the Standards Approval Committee. Then the real work of this technical committee actually begins, where they start debating things like what is the composition of the chemicals that need to go into that standard? What are the testing methods? So, for instance, if you think about a product like hand sanitizer,
yes.
You know, 2 years ago it was a big story with the advent of COVID. What should go into it? Oh. Should it be alcohol-based hand rubs? So the committee then looks at this, and they then, based on their production processes, based on their experience, you've also got academics in the room who then say, no, this is the latest research that's coming out. This is what a national standard could be. Once we have that, it's then published in the Government Gazette. There's a public inquiry process, so anybody can actually then give their inputs to say, actually, we agree or we disagree. Once we get all of those comments, we then edit and get approval, and that then becomes a national standard. That national standard is then used by manufacturers.
That sounds like quite a lengthy process.
A huge process,
What is the turnaround time? Is there a standard turnaround time where you give yourself like 5 months, or does it depend on the product?
Depends on the product, because, you know, some sectors are a lot more complex than others. And so our standard turnaround times, we've been able to reduce those. It's about 301 days. So we're well within the international norms when it comes to that.
My goodness. So SABS is basically, and people don't understand this, is in an administrative position. Am I correct in saying
Absolutely.
that? So you're not manufacturing anything. It's the control and the coordination of standards in South Africa, and that is administrative.
Absolutely. So we do that according to international best practice. The International Standards Organization, of which South Africa, through the Bureau of Standards, is a member. There we have about 260-odd experts representing a wide range of fields, anything from energy efficiency to clothing, leather, footwear, textiles, to green hydrogen, the storage, transportation. So we've got experts representing South African industries in this international body. And so our technical committees as well, we can either adopt an international standard from the International Standards Organization, and then we bring it into our technical committee and we call it, we sanctify it, we give it a liquor South African flavor. You know, based on our industry, based on our economic context, our socio-economic situation, we then come up with a national standard. So yes, it is an administrative process, but we do this, we've got a norm that anybody can hold us accountable to. So if you feel we've stepped out of the parameters, you do that. And yeah, I've recently had to preside over a matter where some sectors have felt that the process wasn't inclusive enough, and so it then goes through a formal process of review.
Lots of hoo-ha and administration things that we need. But we want to talk about nice things. We want to talk about a couple of examples that you can give us of really standardizing successes that you've had in the last couple of years. But before we get there, we're just going to take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll talk about that. Nou ja, Jodi Scholtz, wys jou nee, SABS. Baie meer ingewikkeld as wat jy gedink het. Ons gaan nou 'n bietjie van advertensiebreek, as ons terugkom, dan vra ons 'n ander vraag.